Hey team, this is Les Bennett, Learning and Development Manager with the Stewart Restaurant Group. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the pump rollers that are found within our Velocity fryers. So what is a pump roller? Pump rollers are parts that are found within the pump itself. And what they do is when the filtration system is turned on, when the pump motor is turned on, they grab the oil and actually pull the oil from the bottom tank up to the top tank. So if those rollers go out, you're going to have trouble when it comes to filtration. Let's dive on in. So where exactly are these pump rollers? Well, we have a motor and we have a pump. The rollers are found within the pump itself. If we come down here, I have a refurbished pump. I've taken the 4 screws out that hold the cap on. If I lift this up, there we can see the rollers. There's 5 of them, and these are 8-gallon rollers. Just make sure when you order rollers for a Velocity fryer that you're not ordering the 5-gallon. We do use the 8-gallon rollers. And you can see these are brand new. They're nice and round. So what will happen over time is your rollers go from being round to being square. The problem with square rollers is they can't grab a hold of the oil as easily. So you may turn your pump on, but it's not pulling any oil. Or it could take 10 to 15 seconds before it even grabs the oil and starts pulling it. Or maybe it's pulling oil, but it's really only going at half capacity. These are all signs that these rollers may need to be changed out. Now, the problem we have when it comes to changing rollers is 1% of your time is spent changing the rollers. The other 99% of the time is trying to figure out how do I even get to the rollers. So let's talk about best practices for refurbishing our pumps. So as we're looking at our pump and the motor, there's really 3 things we have. We have a motor, which has a shaft on it, and there's a seal kit that goes on that shaft, and then the pump itself fits over the shaft and the seal kit. Now what's going to happen is whenever we replace a motor, we have to replace the seal kit. The problem is we often replace the pump while we're at it. In reality though, unless the pump starts to rust out, you should never have to buy a new pump. And that's because all the parts within the pump, the O-ring, the rollers, and the wheel can all be replaced for about a quarter of the cost of buying a new pump. Now, having replaced many pumps and motors, I understand why we would want to replace a pump. Often this is completely gummed up, and often the seal kit gets wedged up into the pump itself, so we have to take the back part of the pump off to kind of punch out some of the seals. And if you can't get this cover off because it's all corroded, it's all stuck on, it's just a big hassle. So sometimes we find it easier just to replace the pump while we're doing it. But in reality, we can actually just refurbish a pump. So let me talk to you about how we can do that. So if I was in a situation where I had to replace this motor, what I would do is I would disconnect my pump right here, and I'd get right back in here and disconnect it. And I would actually leave these elbows on. So after I took the motor out, I would be able to take the pump out, and what I'd be left with is kind of what I have here on this refurbished one, where I still have these pipes in. Because if I was to put this one up in here, these pipes would already be lined up perfectly for this. So if I was to replace this, what I'd be doing is after I got the motor out, I would take the pump off, and I would use this refurbished one, which I've already replaced the ring. The wheel was fine, but then I replaced the rollers, and I would use this as my new pump when I put the new motor on. Now, what would I do with this old one after I took it off? I would do with it exactly like I did with this one. This one isn't too bad, but this one, when I took it out, it was completely gummed up with oil. So what I would do, if I was taking this one off and replacing it, I would take this old one here, I would take it to my fog tank and soak it in there for a couple days. Now, the only thing that can ruin a pump is if it gets rusty, but you can soak it in the fog tank as long as after you take it out, you clean it up and you dry it real well, and then you lube it up with some fresh room temperature oil. So what I would do is I'd put this in the fog tank. After it was done, I would take it out. Now you may have trouble still getting these screws out of it as you go to refurbish it. Sometimes they come out easy, sometimes you're gonna have to use oil. This one I had to use some penetrating oil on the screws, and it took about 3 or 4 days before they finally came loose. But what I would do then, after I cleaned it up in the fog tank, I would take it out, get the cover off. I'd replace whatever needs to be replaced inside of here. When you're done, you always want to lube it up. Henny Penny says you can just use room temperature oil. That way it doesn't get rusty. And then what I would do then, after I cleaned it up, refurbished it, this would now be my backup one, just like this one. So the next time I go to change a motor, I would have a new pump. So I myself always use a new pump every time I change a motor. The thing is, it's not a brand new pump from the factory, it's just a pump that I refurbished. So I really, in the end, only need one extra pump that I just start rotating it around. And every time I change one, I take the one I changed and I refurbish it. So really just one extra pump in an area can come in handy, because that can be the one you're using every time you change out a motor and a seal kit. Now you may ask yourself, is it really worth the time and effort to refurbish a pump? Now at the making of this video, a brand new pump is about $400. And to refurbish one, we're looking at about $15 for the O-ring and about $85 for the rollers. So about $100. So it's a quarter of the cost to refurbish one as opposed to buying a new one. Now you may say though, time is money. I don't have the time, desire, or effort to refurbish one. You may even just have a tech come out and replace it. If that's the case, that's fine. I just encourage you, don't throw away the old pump. What you can do instead is you can mail it to me. First send me a text letting me know it's coming, and then you can mail it to store 139. When I get it, I'll refurbish it. I can even mail it back to you so you have an extra one, or we can use it somewhere else. Even with the cost of shipping, it's still half the cost to refurbish one as opposed to buying a new pump.